One of the best ways to support the FTF podcast is to check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/finish the fight for exclusive episodes, insights, interviews, and plenty more.
If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Welcome back to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast,
where we produce and develop the highest quality gaming research in podcast form.
I am your host, Alex Kendall.
And I am your host, Derek Baker.
And today, for you, we have a little up, down, down, left, right, A, B, start. That's how you unlock our episode today. And we're going to be talking about cheating in video games, from the OG cheat codes to legitimize cheating into online play, into single-player play, into things like RuneScape and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, all these other things, and how cheating or cheat codes in general have evolved.
And it is a lot of fun to think about because, God, I remember the up, down, left, right thing. It was like up, down, left, right. For me, was in Ken Griffey Jr.'s Major League Baseball. And Ken Griffey Jr. would do the Babe Ruth, like the point out into the outfield. And then if he made contact with the ball, automatic home run. That's not where that code got its origin. I think it was the Konami code, but it has become so transcendent now, thinking about that code in particular and what it means is like a pop culture reference. That's how cool this whole concept was within video games. And to me, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. It's very nostalgic, but let's go ahead and get started. Cheating in video games has existed for almost their entire history. The first cheat codes were put in place for play testing purposes. Playtesters had to rigorously test the mechanics of a game and introduce cheat codes to make this process easier. An early cheat code can be found in Manic Miner, where typing 6031769 based on Matthew Smith's driving license enables the cheat mode. 1983 advertisements for the Great Escape utility for Castle Wolfenstein promised that the $15 product remodeled every feature of the game, stopped startup delays, crashes, and chest waiting. You could get any item in any quantity, you could start in any room at any rank, handicap your aim, even add items. So those are just some of the things that involve cheating that we'll be getting into a little bit. But in a computer game, all numerical values are stored as is in memory. Gamers could reprogram a small part of the game before launching it. In the context of games for many 8-bit computers, it was a usual practice to load games into memory and before launching them, modify specific memory addresses in order to cheat, getting an unlimited number of lives, currency, immunity, invisibility, etc. Such modifications were performed through poke statements. The Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC range, and ZX Spectrum also allowed players with the proper cartridges or multi-face add-ons to freeze the running program, enter pokes, and resume. Some games tried to detect the multi-face and refused to load if it was present. The earliest models had no ability to hide. Later revisions either included a switch, hid if the menu had been opened and closed before loading the game, or automatically hid. For instance, with Poke 47196-201 in Night Lore for the ZX Spectrum, immunity is achieved. Magazines such as Crash regularly feature lists of such poke instructions for games. In order to find them, a hacker had to interpret the machine code and locate the critical point where the number of lives is decreased, impacts detected, etc. And sometimes the term poke was used with this specific meaning.
cheating was exploited by technology-oriented players due to the difficulty of early cheats. However, a cheat industry emerged as gaming systems evolved through the packaging and selling of cheating as a product. Cheat enablers such as cheat books, game guides, cheat cartridges helped form a cheat industry and cemented cheating as part of gaming culture. However, cheating was not universally accepted in early gaming. Gaming magazine Amiga Power condemned cheaters, taking the stance that cheating was not part of their philosophy of fairness. They also applied this in reverse. Games should also not be allowed to cheat the player. Guides, walkthroughs, and tutorials are sometimes used to complete games, but whether this is cheating is debated. Later, cheating grew more popular with magazines, websites, and even a television show, Cheat, dedicated to listing cheats and walkthroughs for consoles and computer systems. Poke cheats were replaced by trainers and cheat codes. Generally, the majority of cheat codes on modern-day systems are implemented not by gamers, but by game developers. Some say that as many people do not have the time to complete a video game on their own, cheats are needed to make a game more accessible and appealing to a casual gamer. In many cases, developers created cheats to facilitate testing, then left them in the game as they expanded the number of ways people could play it. With the rise in popularity of gaming, cheating using external software and hardware raised a number of copyright legal issues related to modifying game code. And when we're talking about those like leaving it in, it's the invulnerability, infinite ammo, things like that developers would use to just test out maybe a section of a game or a story option or something that would allow them to do it without actually quote unquote playing, just to do a play test. And those were left in either as like, hey, this is going to be hidden code that we had, or in a lot of the cases in the late 90s, early into the early 2000s, these were things you could unlock, or things that like, hey, if you complete the game, you can unlock God mode, or you can unlock like a lot of Resident Evils had these where like you get like a special gun or something with unlimited ammo at the end of it to kind of make a separate playthrough through this cheat system.
Many modern games have removed cheat codes entirely, except when used to unlock certain secret bonuses. The usage of real-time achievement tracking made it unfair for any one player to cheat. In online multiplayer games, cheating is frowned upon and disallowed, often leading to a ban. However, certain games may unlock single-player cheats if the player fulfills a certain condition. Yet other games, such as those using the Source engine, allow developer consoles to be used to activate a wide variety of cheats in single-player or by server administrators. Many games which use in-game purchases consider cheating to be not only wrong but also illegal, seeing as cheats in such games would allow players to access content like power-ups and extra coins that would otherwise require payment to obtain. However, cheating in such games is nonetheless a legal gray area because there are no laws against modifying software which is already owned, as detailed in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
So a lot to break down and a lot to go through, and we're going to kind of parse that piece by piece to talk about the different aspects of this. And at the end of this, we're going to have a good conversation about like where do we kind of see this and why and how has this continued to evolve. So of course, we're going to start with the OG of it, cheat codes. The most basic type of cheat code is one created by the game designers and hidden within the video game itself that will cause any type of uncommon effect that is not part of the usual game mechanics. Cheat codes are usually activated by typing secret passwords or pressing controller buttons in a certain sequence. Less common activation methods include entering certain high-score names, holding keys or buttons while dying, picking up items in a particular order, and otherwise performing unintuitive actions. Some games may also offer a debug console that can be used to edit game parameters. Effects might include unlocking a character or improving a character's performance. For example, providing a car with greater acceleration, or just visual gags such as Big Head mode in GoldenEye 007. Some games humorously penalize the player for using another game's cheat codes. For example, using cheat codes from Doom in Heretic gives the opposite of the desired effect, such as instant death instead of invulnerability, or stripping weapons instead of providing them. Unlike other cheating methods, cheat codes are implemented by the game developers themselves, often as a tool to playtest certain aspects of the game without difficulty. One of the earliest known examples of this type of cheat is the Konami Code, created in 1986 by Konami developer Kazuhisa Hashimoto as he worked on porting the 1985 arcade game Gradius for use on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Hashimoto is quoted as saying, quote, "The arcade version of Gradius is really difficult, right? I never played it that much, and there was no way I could finish the game, so I inserted this so-called Konami Code."
And then next we have probably one of the most well-known forms of cheating in modern gaming, and that is bots. In video games, a bot is a type of artificial intelligence based expert system software that plays a video game in the place of a human. Bots are used in a variety of video game genres for a variety of tasks. A bot written for a first-person shooter works very differently from one written for a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, and the former may include analysis of the map and even basic strategy, while the latter may be used to automate a repetitive and tedious task like farming. Bots written for first-person shooters usually try to mimic how a human would play a game. Computer-controlled bots may play against other bots and/or human players in unison, either over the internet, on a LAN, or in a local session. Features and intelligence of bots may vary greatly, especially with community-created content. Advanced bots feature machine learning for dynamic learning of patterns of the opponent as well as dynamic learning of previously unknown maps, whereas more trivial bots may rely completely on lists of waypoints created for each map by the developer, limiting the bot to play only maps with said waypoints. Using bots is generally against the rules of MMORPGs, but a significant number of players still use MMORPG bots for games like RuneScape. MUD players may run bots to automate laborious tasks, which can sometimes make up the bulk of the gameplay. While a prohibited practice in most MUDs, there is an incentive for the player to save time while the bot accumulates resources, such as experience for the player character bot. Bots may be static, dynamic, or both. Static bots are designed to follow pre-made waypoints for each level or map. These bots need a unique waypoint file for each map. For example, Quake 3 Arena bots use an Area Awareness System file to move around the map, while Counter-Strike bots use a waypoint file. Dynamic bots learn the levels and maps as they play, such as RealBot for Counter-Strike. Some bots are designed using both static and dynamic features.
So as both of you and I know this, there's plenty of different bots and FPSs that we've played that you have as like your own opponents or maybe your teammates. Even things of like talking about Halo, the Marines, they're bots. They move around, they do their own thing, same as the AI. But where we do see that come in is, when we use them for XP farms or like in RuneScape, you're like, hey, got to get a bunch of iron, got to get a bunch of this stuff. I don't want to mine all day, so my bot will do it for me. Whether that is the literal bot you built into a program, or in RuneScape's sake, it's just a program that runs to tell your character to click when the iron rock is not depleted anymore and comes back. So basically this kind of auto clicker in a way. Next up, we talked about a little bit, but it's modification of runtime data. So talking more about like the pokes or anything that will alter the actual data of the game. So cheating can easily be achieved by modifying the game's data while it is running. These methods of cheating are often less reliable than cheat codes included in a game by its creators. This is due to the fact that certain programming styles or quirks of internal game logic, different release versions of a game, or even using the same game at different times or on different hardware may result in different memory usage, and hence, the trainer program might have no effect or stop the game from running altogether. Modifying game data usually constitutes a violation of a software license agreement that prohibits modifying the program at all. First, we have memory editing, and cheating via memory editing involves modifying the memory values where the game keeps its status information. The way to achieve this will vary depending on the environment in which the game is running. Again, very much when we're talking about using the poke data to actually kind of change up those key values to shift where you may die, we're going to say, no, you actually gain a lot of lives for doing it. So editing that as it were to go along. And there's two different ways. I'm going to throw this over to Derek in a second that we can do it. It's through actual physical hardware editing and then actually through software editing as well.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
So then there's memory editing hardware. A cheat cartridge is attached to an interface port on a home computer or console, and it allows a user to modify the game code either before or during its execution. An early example is the multiface for the ZX Spectrum, and almost every format since has had a cheat cartridge created for it, such as Dattel's range of action replay devices. Another popular example of this is Game Genie for Genesis, NES, Super NES, Game Boy, and Game Gear game consoles. Modern disk-based cheat hardware includes Game Shark and Codebreaker, which modify the game code from a large database of cheats. In later generation consoles, cheat cartridges have come to be replaced by cheat disks, containing a simple loader program which loads a game disk and modifies the main executable before starting it. The legality of this type of device has been questioned, such as the case of Louis Galoob Toys Incorporated versus Nintendo of America Incorporated, in which Nintendo unsuccessfully sued Louis Galoob Toys, stating that its cheating device, the Game Genie, created derivative works of games and thus violated copyright law. There's also memory editing software. The most basic way of achieving this is by means of memory editor software, which allows the player to directly edit the numeric values in a certain memory address. This kind of software usually includes a feature that allows the player to perform memory searches to aid the user to locate the memory areas where known values such as the number of lives, score, or health level are located. Provided a memory address, a memory editor may also be able to freeze it, preventing the game from altering the information stored at that memory address. Game trainers are a special type of memory editor, in which the program comes with predefined functions to modify the runtime memory of a specific computer game. When distributed, trainers often have a single plus and a number appended to their title, representing the number of modifications the trainer has available.
In the 1980s and 1990s, trainers were generally integrated straight into the actual game by cracking groups. When the game was first started, the trainer would typically show a splash screen of its own, sometimes allowing modifications of options related to the trainer, and then proceed to the actual game. In the cracker group release lists and intros, trained games were marked with one or more plus signs after them. One for each option in the trainer. For example, the Mega Crew presents Ms. Astro Chicken ++. Many emulators have built-in functionality that allows players to modify data as the game is running, sometimes even emulating cheating hardware such as Game Genie. Some emulators take this method a step further and allow the player to export and import data edits. Edit templates of many games for a console are collected and redistributed as cheat packs. Emulators also frequently offer the additional advantage of being able to save the state of the entire emulated machine at any point, effectively allowing saving at any point in a game, even when save functionality is not provided by the game itself. Cheating hardware such as Instant Replay also allows such behavior for some consoles. And then talking about it before, kind of with that poke system, is with code injection. Somewhat more unusual than memory editing, code injection consists of the modification of the game's executable code while it is running, for example with the use of poke commands. In the case of Jet Set Willy on the ZX Spectrum computer, a popular cheat involved replacing a Z80 instruction DECHL in the program, which was responsible for decrementing the number of lives by 1, with ANOP, effectively granting the player infinite lives. On Microsoft Windows, a common type of video game hacking is through the use of DLLs. users use a third-party program to inject the DLL into their game of choice.
There's also saved game editors. Editing a saved game offers an indirect way to modify game data. By modifying a file in persistent storage, it is possible to effectively modify the runtime game data that will be restored when the game attempts to load the save game. Hex editors were the most basic means of editing save game files. For example, to give the player a large sum of money in strategy games such as Dune 2. However, as happened with game editors, dedicated game editing utilities soon became available, including functions to effortlessly edit saved data for specific games, rendering hex editing largely obsolete for this purpose. If a save game is stored in multiple files, it may also be possible to cheat simply by mixing and matching these files. For example, if one file represents the items in the treasure chest, while another represents the player's inventory, then the player can save the game before and after picking up an item from the chest and continue play using the treasure chest file before the item was picked up and the inventory file afterward. There's also network traffic forgery. A similar method for cheating in online games involves editing packets to modify outbound network traffic, thus affecting the state of the game. Although this was more common in the past, modern games are developed with robustness against network and packet modifications, and the terms of service for most games explicitly forbid this form of cheating.
Yeah, so now most of our modern games have, well, for the most part, have dedicated servers. So when you're joining a Call of Duty lobby, it's a server hosted, you're going to be peer-to-peer with it, still using your own machine and kind of building off that. That's where you can get some of that latency. But going back to like our Halo 2 days, when you do like a lag switch, you can quickly like turn your little modem on and off or your little router on and off, creating this lag switch so you still have that availability on your server end to still play while everyone else is seeing you bounce around the map. Listen, those were the days. I didn't do it, had no idea how to do it, still don't know how to do it, but I know it happened.
You just got to go on your LimeWire, just download as many things as humanly possible right then and there. Just really make your connection as bad as possible, but just enough to keep you on there, not enough to upload anything at all.
Most of the days are over where you just have someone teleporting through a map the entire time because the connection is so poor and the lag is so bad. And luckily, we're past that. And we're past a lot of these when it does come to cheating. So I want to talk about some of the countermeasures over the years that games have implemented, funny and not so funny, to kind of decrease cheating or at least punish it in a way. So in games having attainable achievements or high score records, or both, cheats by nature allow the player to attain achievements too easily or score point totals not attainable or extremely difficult to attain through legitimate means by a non-cheating player. Notable examples include the following. The 32X version of Doom does not allow the player to finish the game if any cheat codes are applied. Instead, after a cheating player defeats the game's penultimate level, the game simulates a program exit to DOS and displays a mock command prompt. Some PC games and most Xbox games do not record player achievements if they are attained while cheat mode is activated. For example, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 turns this barrier into a continuing obstacle if a player saves the game with cheats activated. The game will then record that fact in the save file and automatically cause subsequent reloads from the relevant save file to reactivate cheat mode. If a player of Portal has any cheats activated when a chamber is completed in challenge mode, the game will display cheated above the performance summary screen for that level. And also, several video game companies have sued cheat makers for copyright infringement, with a successful trial or settlement. Bungie and Ubisoft both convinced cheat makers to stop operating at the threat of paying damages at trial. Take-Two was successful against a cheat maker in an Australian court who awarded damages to the publisher.
Now, as we've said, cheating does unfortunately still exist in many multiplayer video games. While there have always been cheat codes and other ways to make single-player games easier, developers often attempt to prevent it in multiplayer games. With the release of the first popular internet multiplayer games, cheating took on new dimensions. Previously, it was rather easy to see if other players cheated, as most games were played on local networks or consoles. The internet changed that by increasing the popularity of multiplayer games, giving the players relative anonymity, and giving people an avenue to communicate cheats. Examples of cheats in first-person shooter games include the aimbot, which assists the player in aiming at the target, giving the user an unfair advantage. The wall hack, which allows a player to see through solid or opaque objects, or manipulate or remove textures, meshing, which is the action of pushing an item, NPC, or player into the graphic boundary of another object, player, or location in a manner not intended by the game developer. And ESP, with which the information of other players is displayed. There are also cheats that increase the size of the target's hitbox, allowing shots striking close to the target to register as hits.
In online trading card games, creating multiple accounts by jailbreaking devices to get more rewards can be considered as cheating, because it is unfair to players who have only one account. In online multiplayer games, a player may use macro scripts, which automatically finds items or defeats enemies. The prevalence of MMORPGs such as World of Warcraft, Anarchy Online, EverQuest, Guild Wars, and RuneScape has resulted in the trading of in-game currency for real-world currency. This can lead to virtual economies. The rise of virtual economies has led to cheating where a gamer uses macros to gain large amounts of in-game money, which the player will then trade for real cash. The terms of service of most modern online games now specifically prohibit the transfer of accounts or the sale of in-game items for real-world money. The enforcement of these terms varies, however, from one company to another, many turning a blind eye to such trading as detection and prevention requires resources, and banning players also results in losses of revenue. Cheating in online games is common on public game servers. Some online games, such as Battlefield 1942, include specific features to counter cheating exploits by incorporating tools such as Punkbuster, N-Protect Game Guard, or Valve Anti-Cheat. However, much like antivirus companies, some anti-cheat tools are constantly and consistently bypassed until further updates force cheat creators to find new methods to bypass the protection. In single-player games, there are a number of plugins available to developers to use to stop cheaters. An obfuscator will scramble code so it is unreadable by decompilers, rename events, properties, methods, and even add fake code. An obscurer will encrypt variables in memory and mask out strings. Anti-cheat toolkits have a variety of tools such as detecting speed hacks, encrypting player prefs, detecting time cheats, detecting wall hacks, and many, many, many more. These can be used in most multiplayer games as well. And so, as we come to kind of like the end of what originally was more so used as like, hey, cheats are kind of silly and fun, we use them to develop games, into it being a larger industry and a cheats industry actually coming out of this, of making hardware, software, into most of the modern stuff that we see, where whether it's Apex Legends or Call of Duty or whatever online game you're playing, all of these use anti-cheat, but still finding ways around it. So I wanted to bring this out and start that conversation of where do we see cheats today, Derek, and kind of what's your opinion on it overall? Do you run into this? Is it something that that is worth having anti-cheat in all these games we play, or is it also just destroying the online gaming community?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an interesting conversation because it has totally changed with online multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
The prevalence of that, Twitch streaming, the actual real world revenue that being a successful online video game player brings in now versus when these cheats started coming into the video game realm is a totally different ball game. I mean, we're not talking about playing Grand Theft Auto locally and just automatically unlocking every weapon with unlimited ammunition running around causing mayhem on our own PS2. We're talking about being able to do that in GTA 5's online world. And there's tons of cheating in video games that causes those video games to lose active player bases. And so I think that's a really interesting aspect of this, where companies in the past, we talked about Nintendo trying to sue Game Genie over that product because they viewed it as creating like a similar type of infringing on their copyrights, essentially.
Sure.
It's not so much about the cheating, it's the fact that they now have to worry about these outside look-alike type of games, maybe a Pokemon clone or something like that, versus these games now where, they might sue because no one's going to want to play the game where they just get aimbot killed immediately when they spawn, as soon as they spawn, until that problem gets fixed. People aren't going to want to log in and play, and it might prevent players from playing long-term if it continues to be a problem. I think that online cheating is one of the most frustrating aspects of online video gaming. It definitely makes me not want to play those games almost immediately, because if it's a problem, if there's aimbotting, if there's anything like that going on, like the reason that I log into a video game is not to play it super competitively. I'm not trying to be the best in the world. I'm just trying to unwind and have some fun. That to me is not fun. It's really hard for me to empathize and get into the mentality of someone who's so desperate to be the top player, see their name at the top of that leaderboard, that they'd be willing to cheat to do that. But I also understand, Twitch streamers looking to gain a little bit more popularity by saying, hey, I am one of the top players. So there's real motivation now that I think didn't exist before to cheat in video games.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is a whole industry of it. And you do see, I a while back used to watch a lot more Apex streams, and you would see some of these top streamers that would just get not only stream sniped of having people come to their stream and watch them, but they would be literal cheaters in Apex. They would have wall hacks. They would have all these aimbots for headshots on snipers. And the whole detection industry itself was built out of this, of like, hey, we have to have a whole team that just sits there and bans people and reviews that not only people were abusive in the game or something, but that they were cheating, that they were using scripts, that they were using these add-ons that are just not making the game fun for others. And it is a revenue loss. It's a revenue loss of like, do we balance this out? Do we lose the people who will keep buying this game when they get banned, like by just trying to prevent this? It's so hard when that money gets involved. So it's so interesting to see how this has changed from like, I figured out through this code injection that this specific coordinate number is infinite lives and I can play it for fun, or the Konami code of like, hey, this game was too hard for me to actually play to like port it. So I made a code just so I don't die.
Yeah.
It's come a long way from that.
That's such a funny aspect as well. Like, I feel like there should be a review at that point. Like, hey, this game is just really hard. Like, if our developers can't finish this game without putting cheats into it, that seems like a problem. Maybe we might want to, and maybe it was just him specifically just being so bad at the game, but it's just a funny difficulty thing. And yeah, so many different types of cheats that it's got its own, I don't know, just own conversation around itself. And I think most people agree that online cheating against users is bad. It's those other conversations that I think is kind of interesting, like in the Pokemon World tournaments, players use hacked Pokemon to play. They're not getting any sort of unfair advantage because the stats that they get, from what I understand at least, are still possible to get through the actual process of breeding and the process of, spending hours basically grinding in the Pokemon equivalent to get those Pokemon.
Sure.
Is it really cheating for them to just hack those Pokemon in when they're not getting any sort of advantage beyond they have more time in their life? I mean, that's where it's more of a gray area for me.
Yeah.
Versus like the ones that get that little aimbot help when they're, you're watching a streamer play and they're, popping off shooting everybody in the head really easily. It's like, is this guy really that accurate with a mouse? Or is he getting a little bit of help? He gets in the general vicinity and bam, it locks onto the opponent's head. Those to me are two totally different forms of the cheating and the competitive advantage aspect that comes along with that. I kind of goes back to, I think that magazine at the beginning of the episode basically saying like all forms of this stuff is cheating, flipping it on the other end and saying cheating against users is wrong, where video games, to me, I totally agree with that, because I've played video games where, let's say you play Call of Duty on the hardest difficulty, like they are seeing you through walls, they are aimbotting you, they are shooting you as soon as you turn a corner. It's using the advantage of the AI to make the game hard. That to me goes beyond like creating real difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think that existed a lot more in racing games in our youth, where rubber banding was so bad.
Yeah, and so I think it's a good conversation to, I think, continue. And if you guys are interested, I would love to explore more of like the online aspect of it, just because cheat codes throughout the years were much more of a moral high ground of like, I won't use them, and less of like an actual impact into it. And even talking about Game Genie and Game Shark, unlocking certain things, unlocking like 300% boost mode in Diddy Kong Racing or things like that, that would make it more of an effect and less of something that actually affects real world aspects of it, whether it's streaming, whether it's just playing in your off time, whatever it is. So if you guys are interested, I would love to do another episode that actually breaks down cheating in online games and gives you more of those definitions of what we're actually talking about and where we actually see it and the hopefulness of it in the future. I don't know, but if you guys are interested, let us know, because as we wrap this up, our cheating episode, we have a bit more to talk about. So let us know in our socials if you want to hear more about that, and we'd be happy to do it.
One good thing of cheating, and it's cheating prevention, it gave us Mr. Rossetti in Animal Crossing.
It is true.
So
it is very true. So I do want to talk more about those things as well. Let us know. We're excited to do more of this, and we will let you guys have the rest of your day to ponder. Should I lag switch or not? Should I do my sweet Halo jump on Sword Coast or not? Let us know. All right, guys.
all right.
It's been a pleasure. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys. Take care.
Bye.